In this show today, we will be talking about sound healing.
Everything in life is vibration. As everything is vibrating, so are we. Sometimes we can become out of tune in either mind, body, or spirit, and a disease can start to take hold. Through the healing frequencies of sound therapy, our bodies can be brought back in tune, and we can begin to feel healthy and balanced once more. Therapeutic sound healing can help you feel the deep relaxation and stress relieving effects of the sound of planetary gong, crystal singing bowls, Tibetan singing bowls, and other instruments' rich harmonic frequencies.
Welcome to the 540 Degree Show, a place where you see and hear people who took the U-turn with a 360-degree perspective in life. I'm your host, Renata Marson, and I'm delighted to have here today with us Dr. Nicholas Charles Demetrius.
Thank you, Renata.
So, Nick, tell me a little bit more about sound healing. What is this and how you've been drawn to it?
Sure. I can begin with when I first became aware of the benefits of sound healing, which was actually for myself. A freshman, beginning student in medical school. And at that time, especially, this was in 1972, if you can imagine. That medicine was based primarily on physiology, anatomy, biochemistry, pharmacology, and very little was being talked about in the way of other influences on our bodies, for example, and our minds. And one day when I was in anatomy lab, probably having smelled too much formaldehyde for weeks, I asked a sincere question, and the question was, what is life? And I asked it several days in a row, and I asked it in front of the cadaver I was dissecting. What is life? What is this animation we call life that we live? And I walked home one day after that from my classes, and I began to suddenly open to an energy behind matter, behind what I was seeing, the trees, the flowers, people walking by. And I began to hear various sounds and feel a very strong movement of activity in my heart. And quite often, for several days, I would cry when I would walk in nature. And I was wondering, what is this? If you remember from the Bible, the very beginning of the Bible, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. And the Word relates to the sound, of the sound current. And I know from other spiritual disciplines I've studied that one of the ways that we can purify our mental and emotional bodies is through mantra or sound. And that, like the rishis, the Indians talk about the power of Om. So at that time, I didn't know that when I was in the medical school program, but I began listening after this experience I share with music. I was listening to classical music for a while, and I would begin to experience this process of leaving my physical body and connecting to the solar system, to the spheres. And of course, as this was happening, having to, of course, attend my normal medical school classes every day, I was a little concerned that people would think that when I'd gaze off into into space, I was probably on marijuana or something. But actually, I was experiencing my first deep experience of an altered state of consciousness, where I was no longer in what we classically call this beta wave activity of problem solving and intellectual figuring things out. And I was opening to what we now understand as a more alpha and theta brainwave state, which allows access to other realities, other dimensions. So this began my process with sound. But of course, I had more education to do, and I continued and became a psychiatrist and trained there. But then became interested in the energetic ways of doing medical work, for instance, homeopathy, acupuncture, because we know in the East there is an incredibly long tradition in Asia, China, and India with systems that reflect more the balance of energies in the body, the chakra system, the acupuncture meridians. And so I got quite interested in how energy impacts our physical body and our minds from there. So it was a big turnaround. It was my kind of my 360-degree turn.
Excellent, excellent. Wow, has so many parallels in the life that we have, you know. So you're a doctor, and then you decide to be in contact with this life, profound life, and then found that sound was the first connection that it happens. So how did
Yes.
you now move from this awareness and then 360 to this 180 degree to what you are today?
Well, it took a long time. And I have to say that there was a lot of adjustments as I was trying to find how do I connect what I experience inside myself with something I can use with patients outside. And I think along the way we're guided, you know, and I kind of put away the whole sound application of vibration and energy for a while. And one day I had a patient visit me. And this man had been suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. He had been in the Iraq War, and he had witnessed and experienced a terrorist attack, and he had had many surgeries thereafter. He came back to the US and had a very difficult time adjusting to life again. And the biggest single problem he had was that he was unable to sleep. He would wake up in the night once he fell asleep with the remembrance of this trauma, and he'd hear a big explosion and commotion, and he really was not able to work again. And he was on a lot of medication for sleep and for what was considered like a psychotic state at times he would float into because of the trauma. And they weren't getting anywhere with him. And I interviewed him and I saw him. And then quite suddenly after the second interview, suddenly I got this message. It felt like my angel was telling me something here. Why don't you have him listen to natural sounds all day and all night? Just have him put a repeating tape on of like ocean waves, a river flowing. And I chose ocean waves, and I said, why don't you listen to this and only natural sounds and just have that tape moving 24/7. So he did it. And after 2 weeks, he came back and he said, you know, it's a funny thing. I'm not taking as much medication and I'm sleeping perfectly well now. In 6 months, he was able to actually return to a vocational program to rehabilitate himself. And in a year, he actually he was married, and he was moving into a new way of life. And this had a big impact on me. I thought how simple it can be that if you take beautiful harmonious sounds. At the time, I didn't realize that a lot of this was also inducing an alpha state in his brain and helping him heal, because our auditory canal let's say the first thing that develops when we are infants in our mother's belly is the auditory sense. And that auditory sense is connected to all our organs except our pancreas, interestingly enough. And so we know that sound impacts our body, and we know that it impacts our organ systems. And so this was the first experience kind of linking sound in my practice to something I could work with.
Thank you so much for sharing this experience with this client. And it makes me wonder, as a doctor and using the sound and seeing the results, have you tried to do an experiment in a way like seeing this more systematically and understand the subtleties in scientific way, or have you only gone into more in depth, like let's say into the right side of the brain when things are connected, but not necessarily you need to find the reason for that? So
Right. I working to see the clinical effects with the people I work with, and I'm seeing some real benefits from it. When I started studying sound and I began more formally, I began wondering, I knew it would impact the body. We knew many experiments, that have been done of, for instance, going back to the 18th century with the Chladni plate, where Ernst Chladni took a metal plate and put a violin string, attached the metal plate to the string in such a way that when he played the violin at different intervals, suddenly with sand or salt on this metal plate, there would be these amazing mandalas, perfectly symmetrical figures that would emerge. And that was followed by Hans, I forget his name. I'll try to remember it. But another fellow, the founder of cymatics. And he also did this with different frequencies. And every frequency has a geometrical expression. So we know that sound leads to geometrical changes and structures, and this eventually leads to manifestation in the body. And some sounds have even been researched as whether they are effective in healing disease states. There's even a man right now that's working with trying to find a way to find a frequency to heal pancreatic cancer that is a very difficult cancer to treat. So I was aware of all this, but I also have an artistic side. So I wanted to just open up and work with different sounds and tones. And as you're probably aware, there are many systems. There's the traditional 12 tone system, that we have in Western music. There's the solfeggio system. There's also a system that deals with planetary tones, because basically when you take the way that we measure frequencies by measuring revolutions per second. Okay, so you have something, even the planet Earth revolving around the sun has a frequency over the course of a solar year, for example. So there are a lot of different systems, but what I started doing at first was intuitively, before a new client would come in, I would ask inside in meditation, so give me the tone. What's the tone this person is vibrating on? Because I think every soul has its tone. Even our human voice, our physical voice is unique to every individual. So I would get these tones, and then I would begin to talk to them about their problems, and I would start to link tones and octaves to their issues. And it seemed to work out pretty well. And then I would start working with those in the therapy.
yes, and this issue of how you measure the frequencies and how we perceive the frequencies, because our body has a limitation. We cannot hear
Yes.
everything.
Absolutely.
We only hear a range, but the other organs has their potential to hear whatever our ears cannot. So how do you work
That's right.
and work with the possibilities of harmonizing parts of the body that have been not heard or need to be heard or need to hear something to get the frequency? Do you have a technique that you can explain easily for, you know, a potential client that would like to use the system? For example, you have
Mhm.
the chair where people sit and then you play. It's
Yes,
like a long guitar. It's like a long sitar.
that's right.
And
That's right.
and
Yeah.
how do you, I mean, you use your intuition, you say, but there's some connection, deeper connection that makes you aware what exactly part of the body needs.
Mhm. Sure, sure. Actually, there's on what we call the bioenergy field based on the emanations of energy from our physical bodies. And we have, of course, in the East, they talk about the chakra systems or the 7 basic energy centers in the body that are connected to our hormonal system. And also different levels, like for instance, the physical body, obviously you can contact the energy and information through touch or closely off the skin. The emotional body system is really at about elbows length around the body, and the mental body system at hand's length. And so what you can do is you can take a tone. It doesn't really matter. You could take a tuning fork or a bowl, and you can start to play it over different parts of the body, starting, for example, from the feet, moving up, each side of the body, first on, say, the left side, then the right side. And you can do it for each of the feels I've just shared. And when you see a change in the tone, and you will actually hear it, there's where there's a pocket of disturbance or trauma. And then you just work with the tone to even that energy out. And of course, there are 2 ways to work with sound healing primarily. One is through resonant sounds that help support already harmonious vibrations and energies in the body, and dissonant sounds, which basically draw out the conflicts that are unconscious in a person. A similar way of looking at it is that, when you hold an unconscious issue in yourself that you are unwilling to look at, and you meet a person that is playing that out, you might say, oh, I don't like that person, or I don't like what they're doing, and get really judgmental about it. But in truth, what you're doing is trying to protect yourself from seeing something unconsciously in yourself. So when you work with dissonant sounds, sometimes that will draw out the negative or the self-limiting thought patterns and emotions in the person, and you can begin to process them with them, like in counseling, and then bring in the harmonious sounds to help clear the energy. So that's one example. I have a what we call a monochord chair. It's a chair that is made of wood, but it's hollow inside, and on the back we have strings that are in harmony, and most of them are at the tone A 110. And this is an interesting thing because sound healing has been used, for centuries, way before modern medicine. And now that they are starting to measure, some researchers are measuring the acoustic effects of sound and mantra, and in old prehistoric temples, say in the temples in Malta and different areas of the planet, and they're finding a very consistent tone, and that's A110. And A110 has a really relaxing effect. It actually opens the hemispheres of the brain, so you get more of a whole brain activation. And so the chair has that. So when you sit in the chair, and you strum it from the back, the person is not only receiving the sound through their ears of this 110 primarily, but also through their body. And in addition, we can receive sound directly through our energy field. So it doesn't even, we don't even have to touch a person with sound, but they can receive it through the field itself. So that's some of the way that I work, and also just working, for example, in regression therapy. I will sometimes, when a person goes through a process, I will sometimes take a bowl, I'll just intuitively pull a bowl, put it on their body, and strike it to move that energy out, and then continue to process them from there. So it's a creative process I've been using, and I'm just following my inner guidance at this point to choose what's right. One of the things I want to share is that whenever you work with sound or any technique or tool with a person, it's not really the technique itself that is causing the healing or the change in the positive direction for the person. It's also the fact that it's your intention and your love that's combined with this medium. In this case, it could be a bowl, it could be some other, a tuning fork or whatever. And when you direct your energy in that way for the highest good of the person, then the sound takes on another quality. It takes on a quality of love and a quality of healing. And so it really doesn't matter so much. There's some sound healers that say, just forget every system of sound and just work with your heart, your intuition, and the instrument in your hands. And just like hands themselves, as you know, that we can be the instruments. We're the instruments ourselves.
Wow, wonderful. And thank you so much for explaining how the chair works. And I would love to be there to listen to it.
You'll have to come back.
Yes, and then thinking about the isolation that we are living now through this pandemic, how do you see the
Yes.
possibilities of doing sound healing at distance and helping people, for example, in the situation where they are confined, some of them with the COVID and some of them don't know they have, but probably do.
Sure,
So how
sure.
sound healing would be appropriate used, and if you could do, like, let's say a session at distance, tell us, how do you use it? Have you been using
Yes,
that
yes.
lately?
Actually have. I've been doing meditation groups primarily in Europe. And with the groups, I'll sometimes play my crystal lyre, my harp, or the bowls. I'll choose different tones intuitively, and it works very well. And for people who, for instance, don't have avenue to have someone play directly for them, they can also find a number of natural sounds from the YouTube. They can pick up like ocean waves or rivers, the sound of the wind, all of these things, and just have this playing in their home, on their environment where they are, because it will help relax them. So you're very right. I mean, sound, you hear it, but you're also being impacted in your energy field by it. It does travel. You're right. So I'm doing more of this now, interestingly enough. More people are asking, well, you know, I can't be there and hug you or work directly. So what can we do? And sure enough, we can work with sound.
Is it possible for you to give us a glimpse of what would be a session, like in short ways, like you imagine the person sitting at the chair, or how do you
Yes,
approach the connection that you need to
sure.
have?
All right. So just a feeling here of it. You would have the person lying down on the treatment table. And I usually start by taking a large Tibetan bowl or Himalayan bowl, and I put it at their feet or right between their legs for grounding. And then I'll take a smaller bowl, what we call like probably a fourth octave bowl, because that touches them more emotionally and mentally. And begin to move from the feet on one side of the body up the body, close to the body, but not touching the body. And then moving over the shoulder and then around the head, and then back down the shoulder to the feet, and then do it on the opposite side as well. And during this time, this is a general clearing. So I do this for the physical body, the emotional body, and the mental body. And then I'll hit the large bowl at the feet again, and then take the feet to ground them. So that would be a very general clearing and relaxing session. But also I can do work with specific issues that come up. And in this case, I simply have them say their name 3 times, because in their voice is all the information they need. I need to know what's going on. And I just watch I hear the sound, and I just allow that to be a visual experience for me. And I can then locate where they need to work with the healing process. And it works very well. Also, there are times when I apply a voice analysis system. It's a computer system developed here in the US that allows you to find out. It's kind of like finding the missing vitamins in your voice, and finding what is missing. And then those tones are played to you as a a recording, and you can listen to those tones for a week or two. And all you need is a voice sample. They just speak into a microphone and they give you a voice sample. So I do a number of things with sound healing. And you can, I think earlier you could hear the tones of the lyre, but I can demonstrate a few more for you.
Oh, thank you. And I'm very interested in the voice. I think it's easy. You can do it at distance, and you can send to people. So it's very interesting that
That's
it's like
right.
a prescription,
Yes.
of a voice vitamin. That's really,
Yes, it is. It's
really
a
awesome.
prescription online. Yeah, and this is very good. What it will do is it takes a few days, maybe a week or two, but it will literally clear the trauma in the system and create a new resonance for the person. And what I've noticed, I've been observing lately since this COVID epidemic, that there seems to be a lot of deep clearing going on for the collective of humanity.